This might be the best clarinet blues chorus you've never heard. In 1926, clarinet and sax player Edward Inge made his first recordings with Arthur Sims' Creole Roof Orchestra. They recorded 3 sides, and 20-year-old Inge plays his first recorded solo on the last tune, Soapstick Blues. Now, there are plenty of great recordings of clarinetists playing the blues. Sidney Bechet's Blue Horizon, Jimmy Noon's Apex Blues, Leon Rapolo on Tin Roof Blues, and just about every recording of Johnny Dodds playing the blues is a classic. But Edward Inge's solo on Soapstick Blues deserves some attention as well. First of all, let's have a listen. Sound great to you, or nothing special? To me, this is just magnificent playing. Let me explain why. Okay, firstly, I like what Inge plays. Look at the first line, which, as is often the case with the blues, is a 4-bar phrase with a 2-note pickup this time. It begins on a C, hovering around that note before moving up to those 2 Ds, and then moving down to the A flats, which each resolve to an F, the tonic note. Now compare that to the second line, the second phrase. It begins with the same 2-note pickup, introducing that same C, but this time it moves up to a high F instead of the D, varying from the first phrase, playing around with it. But the A flats resolving to the F finish off the phrase again, embellished with some extra notes, of course. And then we have the third phrase on the third line, which varies the pattern even more. It has a similar 2-note pickup to the C before moving down this time instead of moving up like the first 2 phrases did. It's kind of like a release. But the A flats resolving to the F come back to provide a sense of familiarity and closure to the whole thing. Then, right at the end, those repeated Cs provide a sense of movement into the next chorus, as Inge hasn't finished on the tonic note. It's a signal there are more solos to come. And that's it. 3 basic phrases, each composed of 2 parts, but expertly balanced with just enough variety to be interesting, structured with a sense of purpose. But it's also about what he doesn't play. It's a slow tune, and there's plenty of time to play a lot of notes. Inge has more restraint than that, though. He focuses on playing well-structured melody rather than swooping up and down the whole range of the instrument to show off his technique. There's a time and a place for that, but it's not an especially bluesy thing to do. That's the structure of the solo. What about how he plays it? I'm really interested in the way 1920s jazz musicians played 8th notes before swing came along and codified things. Before that, there were many different approaches to 8th notes, each achieving different effects. Inge plays with very unequal 8th notes, so unequal I've actually notated them as a dotted 8th note and a 16th note each time. The effect created is a swung rhythm that feels relaxed but also somehow pulls you along. Inge's articulation emphasizes this effect. He tends to tongue the first note of these pairs quite hard, which I think might be where the whole pulling you along sensation comes from. His sound is pretty spiky and bright, although not as much as on his later recordings with McKinney's Cotton Pickers and Don Redman. It's far from a classical clarinet sound, and it cuts through both the band and the older recording technology to command your attention. He plays with obvious vibrato, as most jazz clarinetists do, and particularly on the longer notes. That serves to soften his considerable attack and makes him sound a bit more like a human voice. Finally, listen to how he bends those A flats. He really leans into those blue notes, emphasizing their slight dissonance and giving the solo a strong helping of that blues singer moan. So Soapstick Blues is virtually unknown, apart from amongst a small group of musicians and collectors, and the only online reference I could find to this particular solo describes it as rather ordinary. Even I only heard this record for the first time last year. This video is unlikely to launch Edward Inge to any level of posthumous fame, but that's not really my goal anyway. Instead, this solo stands as just one example, albeit a shining one, of the excellence to be found in obscure old records if you look outside the established classics. You don't have to be a jazz great to play great jazz.